McMinnville, Oregon is home to one of the most thoroughly researched UFO sightings in history. In 1950, outside of McMinnville, Oregon, this photo was taken at the Trent Farm. And look, I'm not necessarily like a ufologist or whatever, but I will say, out of all the UFO photos I've ever seen, this is not a bad one. And because it was a pretty good photo of something, it caught the attention of the newspapers as soon as the Trent family sent their negatives in. As the story goes, Mrs. Trent was walking back to their house after feeding their rabbits when she noticed a slow-moving metallic object kind of moving in the sky. She yelled for her husband to go grab the Kodak. Once they found it and went back outside, they snapped a couple of photos. A friend of theirs who had connections at the newspaper took the negatives and published this article. And the story didn't just get the attention of the locals, it caught the attention of the FBI, who launched a very thorough investigation. And this investigation was only the first of quite a few, surprisingly. They looked at these photos, and in the initial FBI investigation, they determined that it was undeterminable. Essentially, the first report said, well, it seems like it could be legitimate, but also it could be a small little UFO model hanging from a power line. And that's about where the story sat until the 1970s, when another committee picked it up, and this committee was led by a Navy physicist. And the 1970s committee determined that it was absolutely a legitimate photo of some unidentified thing genuinely floating through the air. Which is where the story sat until the 80s, when another committee looked at the photos, and then that committee said, absolutely not, it is definitely a hollow model hanging by a thread from a power line. Whether you think that those photos are legitimate and genuinely show a UFO or not is completely up to you. I'm never going to tell anybody what to believe about any of that. But regardless, they are a very important part of local history here in Oregon, and you can go to the McMinnville UFO Festival every year, which apparently is the second largest in the entire nation.